قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: حسين مني وأنا من حسين.
قال رسول الله نور عيني، حسين مني أنا من حسيني، حسين مني أنا من حسيني، حسين مني أنا من حسيني.
ما شاء الله، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته، ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين سيما ولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم ملعونين. أما بعد, for the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Marziyah, for the enlightenment of the graves of Yawm al-Humeen, of the graves of the Shuhada, Ulama and Siddiqeen, for the safety of the followers of Ahlul Bayt around the world, and for the safety and the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullah al-A'zam, Arwahun al-Fida, please recite your loudest salawat. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one who is Rahman and one who is Rahim. Continuing the discussion and the hadith from the 8th Imam to his companion Rayyan ibn Shabib. The next thing that the Imam says to Rayyan ibn Shabib concerning the aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada is, Yabna Shabib, إن سرك أن تسكن الغرف المبنية في الجنة مع النبي وآله, that, O son of Shabib, if you wish to have a house in Jannah next to the Prophet and his Al, فَلْعَنْ قَتَلَةَ الْحُسَيْنِ, then make sure that you do la'na on those that killed Aba Abdullah. Says by doing that la'na, Allah will gift you a place within Jannah next to the Prophet of Allah and next to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But what is that la'na? Is la'na as we would traditionally think of it as swearing? Because sometimes, even when it comes to the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, we think it's free game. We can say what we want about them, because they're the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. We can say he was, can't say it, hurma of the mimbar. But you know what I mean. Is la'na swearing? No. La'na is a dua. Swearing is haram, even at the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. Even at the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. In the Battle of Siffin, it is said that Hujjar ibn Adi and Malik al-Ashdad, two of the greatest companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, fighting, as they approached the army of Muawiyah, they heard someone swearing at Amir al-Mu'mineen. So they swore back at Muawiyah. When they returned, Amir al-Mu'mineen said to them, it's come to my knowledge that you swore at my enemy. Says, I, Ali, don't like the fact that you swore. If you do this again, disassociate yourself from me. They say there was a companion that was with the fourth Imam, all the time with the fourth Imam, like a shadow to the Imam. Everywhere the Imam went, this companion was with him, all the way by his side. One day, as he's walking with the Imam, he begins to call his slave. Calls him, the slave doesn't listen. Second time he calls him, doesn't listen. Third time he calls him, doesn't listen. When he doesn't listen the third time, he shouts out in anger at him, "O son of a woman of ill repute, O son of an illegitimate son." Frozen. The Imam alayhi salam stops, looks at him, says, "Who did you say that to?" Says, "Imam, my slave." He says, "This slave?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Were his parents not married according to their faith?" He says, "Yeah, Imam, but he's a Jewish slave. Like, what's it?" Imam says, "No. Were his parents married according to their faith?" He says, "Yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah." So then Imam says, "So then why is it that you swore at him? Until I am alive, never speak to me again. Move away from me." This whole life spent with the Imam, one swear word, and the Imam pushed him away. And that person left this world while the Imam was still angry at him. And for us, swearing, every other word is a swear word, some of us. We can't end a sentence without ending with a swear word in between. Sometimes it's a gap filler. I can't think of what I'm thinking about. I can't think of the words that I need to. Just quick swear word in between, fill the gap. So la'na is not swearing. Because swearing qat'an is haram. Against the enemies of Allah, against the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, against your own enemies, against anyone. Swearing is qat'an haram. Even just using it in your day-to-day language, haram, not allowed. So what is la'na? La'na is a dua. When you say, Allahumma la'an fulan, you say, "Oh Allah, I don't know where this person is going. But all I know is that this person infringed the rights of your beloved people. So all I'm asking you to do, Ya Rab, is remove your mercy from this person." Because when the mercy of God is removed, an entity ceases to exist. So he says that if you want to place next to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and the Holy Prophet in Jannah, then say la'na on the killers of Abu Abdullah. Yesterday we said that if you want to be with Ahlul Bayt, say Ya Laytan. If you want to have the same sawab as those that were killed by the side of Abu Abdullah. See this, all of these remembrances of Sayyid al-Shuhada, they have an impact. Just now I was listening to the announcement that there will be taboot, and because of the COVID regulations and everything, and the situation that we find ourselves in the world over, that do your ziyarat from afar. And there's no ishkal to this. There's no problem. No one should feel offended by this. And as I was listening to Agha giving the announcement, it reminded me of a story, and I thought when I go up I'll share it. They say that one of the ulama, his friend had died, and he saw him in a dream. We said that from the dream, from the barzakh, people can come into the dreams of people in order to give them advice or ask for help. So he sees his friend in a dream and he says, "How's it going?" He says, "It's very difficult. There is a lot of azab. If there's anything that you can do for me, please do it." Please do something for me. Help me through this difficult time. So he says, I woke up the next morning, I began holding majalis for him, I began giving niyaz in his name, I began holding the mahafil of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in my house, gathering people, giving sadaqah, doing everything. Says some few days later, he says, I saw him again in my dream, and he's very relaxed. He's saying, look, says, did my majalis and everything work? He says, they helped a little. But he says, look, there was someone, some lady that was buried here in this graveyard. I don't know who she is, but through the barakah of her, all of us have had our adhab removed. He says, who is she? Do you know anything about her? He goes, look, I don't know anything about her. I don't know her name. I don't know where she came from. I don't know whose mother she is, whose wife she is, whose sister she is. He says, I don't know anything. The only thing I can tell you about her is every day Abu Abdullah himself comes for her ziyarat. He says, I woke up from the dream, started looking for who this lady was that had died. I started asking around, and I found the house. I went to visit the husband. And I said to him, listen, was your wife from amongst the awliya of Allah? Did she do some sort of special a'mal? Did she do some sort of special ziyarat? How many times had she been to Karbala? What had she donated something to the haram? What is it that she did? He says, look, there was nothing special that my wife did. We're too poor to go to Karbala. We couldn't afford to go to the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. We couldn't do anything. He says, so then any a'mal, what did she do? He says, no, she didn't do any a'mal. So he goes, so then why is it that she has such a maqam that Abu Abdullah himself is visiting her? He says, look, I can't think of anything, but there's only one thing that comes to my mind. Since we were married, my wife has always done this. And what is that? He says that every day she would go to the roof of our house, turn towards Karbala and say, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. Without fail, every day she would do that. You do that from afar. Abu Abdullah knows your intention. I said to you, Abu Abdullah doesn't hold the ihsan of anyone. The salam that you send, he hears. We say it in the ziyarat nama, that you hear what I'm saying and you're replying to my salam. So don't be worried if because of this situation we find ourselves in, you can't go and physically touch the dhari, you can't physically go and touch the tabut. Abu Abdullah knows your intention, and he will reward you for it, inshallah. See, because this love that you have been given, this love of Ali Muhammad, this is something unique. This love is not given to every person. This love that has brought you out of your homes, from the comfort of your own homes, and has brought you here. That's not for every person. This azadari, this love of Ahlul Bayt, is only for the people of ma'rifah. It's only those that have ma'rifah that understand this. Because only the lover can understand the beauty of the beloved. Sa'di Shirazi in his Gulistan has a story, a poem that he writes about Layli and Majnoon. He says that the story of Layli and Majnoon had become famous in the land. And the king of the time had heard of a scholar that had become Majnoon over a lady and was now living like a madman out in the desert. So he says, search the land, find this Majnoon. Find him. So they search and they find him out in the wilderness, they bring him inside, and the king calls him and says, listen, what is it about this lady of yours that you, a person of a high society, a person that was known for your knowledge, has gone and started living like a wild man out in the wilderness? So Majnun begins to describe Layli. Says her hair is like this, her skin was like this, her eyes and her face, and to the point that the king became intrigued. He was like, find this Layli. He says, I want to see this Layli. So they search the whole land and they finally find Layli and they bring her in front of the king. Now Sa'di al-Shirazi describes, says the king looked towards her dry hair, her dry skin, her cracked lips, and he's describing not a very pleasant experience. Says the face of the king changed as he looked towards her, thinking, what had Majnun described, and what is this Layla in front of me? Seeing the change in the face of the king, Majnun sits up, says, O king, in order for you to understand the beauty of Layla, you must look through the eyes of Majnun. The same with this Azar. The world outside may not understand it. This love of Ali Muhammad that you have cannot be understood by everyone. It is only the heart of the Majnoon, the eyes of the Majnoon that truly understand the beauty of this Azadari and the beauty of this love of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So only the lover, the one that is in love, or only the one that created them that understands their azama. Their creator is the one that has the truest of love for them. They say one day Rasulullah came to the house of Hazrat Zahra. Said, Zahra, I'm hungry. Is there something to eat? Hazrat Zahra lowered her head, said, no father, we've not had anything to eat in the house for a day or so. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not wanting to see the embarrassment on the face of Hazrat Zahra, orders the angels to take down dates from heaven and present them to Rasulullah. Rasulullah sits with the plate of dates in front of him and he begins to eat. Imam al-Hussein comes towards him and he says, grandfather, can I have a date? Rasulullah takes the date and he places it in the mouth of Imam al-Hussein and he says, Hani'an laka ya Hussein. Glad tidings be upon you, O Hussein. Imam al-Hassan comes running forward. Grandfather, can I have one of the dates of heaven? Rasulullah places a date of heaven in the mouth of Imam al-Hassan, says, Hani'an laka ya Hassan. Glad tidings to you, O Hassan. Hazrat Zahra comes forward, father, can I also have one of the dates of heaven? The Holy Prophet places a date in the mouth of Hazrat Zahra and says, Hani'an laki ya Zahra. Looking over to the corner of the room, he sees Amirul Mu'mineen standing there. Rasulullah himself says, Ali, come forward. Let me feed you one of the dates of heaven. Amirul Mu'mineen comes forward. Rasulullah places a date of heaven in the mouth of Amirul Mu'mineen. But now all of a sudden the body of Rasulullah begins to shake and tears begin to flow from his eyes. Hazrat Zahra comes forward, father, when you place the date in the mouth of Hassan and Hussein and me, you said, Hani'an laka ya Hassan, Hani'an laka ya Hussein, Hani'an laki ya Zahra. But now when you place a date in the mouth of Ali, why is it that your whole demeanor changes? Rasulullah says, Zahra, when I place the date in your mouth, the angels of the heavens and the earth all called out, Hani'an hani'an laki ya Zahra. So I too said hani'an laki ya Zahra. When I placed it in the mouth of Imam al-Hasan, they called out hani'an laka ya Hasan. So I too called out hani'an laka ya Hasan. When I placed the date in the mouth of Imam al-Hussein, the angels of the heavens and the earth called out hani'an laka ya Hussein. So I too said hani'an laka ya Hussein. But when I placed the date in the mouth of Ali, now neither the angels of the earth nor the angels of the heaven called out anything. Rather the voice of Allah himself came. Hani'an laka ya Abul Hasan wa ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Rasulullah says, Ali, let me place another date in your mouth. Let me see if again Allah calls out. He places another date in the mouth of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the call comes out. Oh my Habib, you know how much I love Ali. Were you to place 1,000 dates in the mouth of Ali, 1,000 times I would call out hani'an laka ya Abul Hasan wa ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. This love that you have been given is no ordinary love. But you are required to do something as a recompense for this love. And the recompense of it is that your life match their life. Your lifestyle match their lifestyle. And we've been looking at the different characteristics, different parts of the lifestyle of Sayyid al-Shuhada to see what it is in our lives we can do to implement. We looked at the first characteristic, that was the fear of Allah, in the first two lectures. Then we looked at the idea of hurriyat, freedom, to be free. Kunu ahraran fi dunyakum. Imam says to them, at least be free men in your dunya. Then we looked at the idea of organization last night, at-tadbir. The requirement to be organized, to manage your time properly, to separate your day into a portion for God, a portion for your family, a portion for your friends, and a portion for yourself, for your halal pleasures. And today I want to look at another characteristic, and that is the characteristic of afu, letting go. Afu, forgiveness. In the Holy Quran, you know, when we look at actually the riwayat about afu, it says afu is the crown of kirama, is the crown of magnanimity. To forgive, to let go. It says it's the crown of kirama. If you want to be kareem, then you must have the crown of afu on your head. You cannot be kareem without it. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the believers. It says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwun lakum. It says, some of your wives and your children are your enemies. This ayah came at the time of Hijrah, and certain wives were stopping their husbands from getting involved in the Hijrah of the Prophet or other things. Ayah comes down, says some of your wives and some of your children are enemies to you. فَاحْذُرُوهُمْ. So he says, so beware of them. But, now the ayah continues, but, وَإِن تَعْفُوا وَتَصْفَحُوا وَتَغْفِرُوا. Says, but if you pardon their faults, even though they are your enemies, they have done wrong by you, but if you pardon their faults, you forgive them, and you forbear with them, then you will see that the grace of Allah shall come upon you. Here there are three things that are mentioned. Ta'fu, tasfahu, and taghfiru. Ta'fu is to forgive. Tasfahu is to forget. Or not bring up. So you've forgiven someone. Sometimes you can forgive someone what they did, but every now and then you like to bring it up. Sometimes that, do you remember the time you did this? Poor guy, you forgave him. You already said to him, I forgave you. But every now and then do you remember the time? So it says the first level is to forgive. The second level is not to bring it up. But taghfiru, the third stage, is that you forget about it totally. You remove it. It doesn't even register for you anymore. And that is the highest level. That someone has wronged you in some way, shape or form. And not only do you forgive them, forget about it, but you, look over it, but you totally and utterly remove it from your mind. You never even bring it up. Never even bring it up. In another ayah of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's ordering the people saying, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Says, forgive, pardon them, forbear with them. Do you not like it if Allah was to forgive you? Meaning what? If you forgive someone, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. It's a difficult stage, this stage of afw within the spiritual journey of a person, to overcome that and actually start forgiving people. On the Ba'that of the Holy Prophet, when Jibreel came down, the Holy Prophet said that Allah has ordered me to do three things, but three of the most difficult things. And he said to Jibreel, these are very difficult. What were those three things? خُذِ الْعَفْوَ, forgive the people. وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ, and teach them what is right. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ, and just ignore the jahilin. Just don't even take them. He says these are very difficult for me to do. But if a person manages to do it, then that is the prophetic akhlaq. We talk about, want to follow the sunnah of the Prophet or the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt. This is a major one. It's a major one in the lives of Ahlul Bayt. To forgive and forget, as if it never happened. Sheikh Ahmed Kashif al-Ghita is known to all of you, a great alim. They say that one day he was leading the salah, and in the masjid he was distributing the khums to the sadat, the Sahm Sadat portion. After he distributed all of it, one elderly Sayyid entered into the masjid angry, comes towards Sheikh Ahmed Kashif al-Ghita, and he comes forward and says, Sheikh, give me my portion of the right of my grandfather. Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita looks at him, says to him, look, I'm sorry, we've already given everything out. This man, angry, spits on the face of Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita. Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita stands up. He takes, and people are ready, they're bayna namaz or just before namaz. He takes his abba with the spit still on his face, and he begins to walk through the saf, and he says, for the sake of this sheikh, please, if you can help in any way, please help. He walks through all the saf of the masjid, gathers money, comes back and gives it to this Sayyid. Wipes his face and starts the salah. That is afw. To be able to control one's anger at that point. Because when he did that, all of the companions and his students all stood up trying to, he said, no, everyone sit down. No one do anything. But the result of that action was that Sayyid became one of the students of Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita. That was the effect of it. To be able to forgive, even at that point. I don't know how many of us could do that. Put ourselves in that. But in reality, that is the akhlaq of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. How many of us could actually do that? We claim that we love them, we claim. But if someone was to come and spit on our face, and we know that they're jahil, would we be able to forgive them? I know what I would do. It's easy to say, well, yeah, of course. If Sheikh Kashif al-Ghita can do it, why not me? It's not that easy. In the battle of Karbala, there is a man by the name of Tamim ibn Kuhtaba. He comes out, is Shami, and he begins shouting, who's going to come and fight me? Sayyid al-Shuhada himself goes out. Because Imam Hussein alayhi salam went out constantly to fight. You know, alongside his companions, alongside some of the Bani Hashim, he would go out and take part in some of the skirmishes. So when this individual, Tamim, comes, he says, who is there that will come and fight me? Sayyid al-Shuhada himself answers the call for a one-on-one battle. He goes out, he begins fighting. With the first strike, Sayyid al-Shuhada takes out his leg. He falls to the ground. As he falls to the ground, he says, Hussein, don't kill me. Imam looks at him and says, would you like me to ask your tribesmen to come and take you? He says, yes, please. He didn't know Imam Hussein. Shami's majority, they weren't the majority in the army of Yazid. It was the Kufans. 30,000 people came from Kufa to join the army of Amr ibn Sa'd. Shamis, they didn't know Ahlul Bayt that well. So he says, don't kill me. Imam says, would you like me to call your tribesmen to come and take you? He says, yes. So Imam Hussein looks up, he says, come and take Tamim. Take him back. Imam returns, they come, they take him back. This is Auf in the heat of battle. In the heat of battle. To be able to forgive the two brothers. You know, Zuhair ibn Qayn, we talked about him the other day. Zuhair was still before, it was early, relatively. Imam Hussein forgave him for all the times that he fought against Amir al-Mu'mineen and was with Muawiyah, forgave him, he joined Sayyid al-Shuhada. The other person, Hur comes, Subhi Ashur. And Imam Hussein says, no, everything is forgiven, Hur, now that you've come to us. But that's still early. Just before Asr Ashur, Ali Asghar has been killed. Imam has buried him. He comes out one last time. Hal min nasirin yansurana. Two brothers look at each other and they say, what is it that we've done? Sa'ad ibn Harith and Abu Hutuf ibn Harith. They look at each other and say, what have we done? What have we been doing this whole time? They leave the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad and ride straight towards Abu Abdullah. Ya ibn Rasulillah. We stood by while they killed your Qasim. We stood by and laughed when your Ali Akbar died. We were the ones that were cheering when your Abbas was killed. Ya ibn Rasulillah, we watched and we laughed in the killing of all of your companions. Ya ibn Rasulillah, halli min tawbah. Is there any forgiveness for us? Sayyid al-Shuhada looks towards them, tears in his eyes. He says, now that you have come to Hussein, all is forgiven, all is forgotten. Go and fight in the way of Allah. They turned around, they didn't even dismount from their horses. They turned around, they went back out and began fighting on behalf of Sayyid al-Shuhada. They were killed, and their names today are inscribed upon the Dharih in Karbala. Hussein is Kareem. You know what's interesting about these two brothers? They are the ones, the handful of people that survived the battle of Nahrawan, the thousands, the tens of thousands that were there in Nahrawan. That was the most bloodiest battle of Amirul Mu'mineen's life. That the Khawarij that broke off from Siffin went to Nahrawan. Amirul Mu'mineen went and he fought them and he killed the vast majority of them. Only a handful remained. That then these two brothers ended up in Karbala and they ended up aiding Sayyid al-Shuhada. Now you understand what Ali was telling Malik al-Ashtar in Siffin. That Malik, the difference between my killing and your killing is this, that whenever I am about to kill someone and strike them with my sword, I look down their lineage. Is there a single mu'min amongst them? And if there is, I spare them. These two brothers were spared from Siffin. They were spared from Nahrawan. Why? So that they could be there by the side of Abi Abdullah in Karbala. Kareem Ali Muhammad. This is their karamat. That even after all of that sin, these two brothers come to Abi Abdullah. Yabna Rasulillah, is there any forgiveness for us? Imam says, now that you have come, and all is forgiven, all is forgotten. So where is it that one should forgive? And where are the places that one should not forgive? There are three places where a person should never forgive. And there is one place where a person should always forgive. Where they should always forgive, that one place is when it is related to your zat, to yourself. If someone wrongs you, you should always try and forgive. Always try and forgive. Why? Because you do raham and Allah will do raham upon you. You forgive and Allah will forgive. Someone does ghiba about you and they're brave enough to come and say, look, please forgive me. I may have been party to ghiba about you, knowing that there's no forgiveness for ghiba unless that person who you've done ghiba about forgives you. So now when someone comes and tells me that, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So you're doing ghiba about me? And then sometimes we get, those that are good will say, no, it's okay, all forgiven. But I was telling the brothers in the Q&A earlier today that sometimes the diseases of our nafs are so advanced and we become so accustomed to sin that it's not just that, okay, I'll forgive it. First I'm like, okay, what did you hear about me? I'm so engrossed in sin that I want to hear my own ghiba as well. Like, oh, what was the rumor? What did they say? So make the person repeat the ghiba again. And then I become party to my own ghiba. It's a problem. And sometimes we enjoy sin so much, but on the zahir we give a very holy exterior. But when it comes to it, I want to know. What was said about me. It's a problem. So the one place that you should always forgive, is when it comes to your zat. And believe me, when you become more forgiving, your life will become a lot easier and your mind will become a lot more peaceful. You see, some people are always angry, man. Always angry. Or if they're not angry, they've just got an angry face. Whereas the mu'min, wajhun mumbasit, his face is happy, smiling, is welcoming. See some mu'min all the time. And we just think, oh no, this is the hayba. No, there's no hayba there, man. The face of the mu'min is welcoming. Or sometimes you just see someone and the way they always are, and you think, man, I feel sorry for your wife or whoever has to live with you at home. Like really, if you're like this to others, I wonder what you're like at home to those that already know you. The mu'min is always merciful, has a merciful aura, a merciful face, smiles. No, we're always, the problem, the reason why we're always so uptight, many people, is that we're carrying around too much hate in ourselves. And one of the things that the Imam al-Sajjad asks for in Dua Makarimul Akhlaq, when he talks about the muttaqeen, says, Ilahi, albisni zinat al-muttaqeen, clothe me in the beautification of the muttaqeen, fi bast al-adl, through the establishment of justice, wa kadhm al-ghayth, and the extinguishment of my, or the swallowing of my anger, wa itfa'in na'ira, and the extinguishing of hate. But I use the word hate so much. I hate this food. I hate this person. I hate this weather. I hate this cockroach. I hate spiders. I hate this. I hate that. I hate this perfume. I hate this smell. I hate this niyaz. I hate whatever it is. There's always something that I hate. But if I can overcome, another stage is if you can overcome and stop complaining, inshallah tomorrow's lecture, stop complaining about things and start appreciating, you will find that you become more merciful. That rahmah of Allah becomes more manifest within you. Some people are just full of hate all the time. Just hatred. No, we haven't got time to go into it, but hate the sin, not the sinner. That's how Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam could forgive people so well. Because they didn't look at the physical entity in front of them. Yes, this person has come and sworn at them, and this person has come and disrespected their father, and they still turn around and say, it looks like you're not from around here. Do you need somewhere to stay? Do you need some clothing? Would you like some food? Why? Because they hate the sin, not the sinner. The sinner is created. But I'm always walking around with hate. I hate the animals, I hate the dog, I hate pigs, I hate... Whatever did the pig ever do to anyone? Yes, it's najis according to the Sharia. It's a creation of Allah. I'm using an extreme example for us to understand how far we are. That this level of love doesn't just extend to the human beings, but also to the environment within which we live and the animal kingdom as well. So when it comes to one's own zat, one's own nafs, one should always forgive. In the Holy Quran, when it talks about this, is the believers, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, they're the ones that swallow their anger, وَعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and they forgive the people. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and surely Allah loves those that do ihsan. And you know the famous story of the servant girl of Imam al-Sajjad. She's pouring water for the Imam, the jug slips, hits the head of the Imam, cuts open the head of the Imam, the blood begins to flow. She looks at the Imam before the Imam can say anything. She says, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, and they swallow their anger. Imam says, I've swallowed my anger. She says, وَعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and he says, I have forgiven you. She says, وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, he says, go, I have freed you in the way of Allah. That level of af. Obviously she knew the Holy Quran as well. That's a true servant of Ali Muhammad. That understanding of the Holy Quran. You know, it's not that, you know, instead of in that situation we start reciting one of the ayat of war. I said, no, she says, she chose the right ayah at the appropriate time. They always forgive. You know, forgive, not just forgive, there's a level beyond that. You know, if someone does wrong to you, for example, your wife or your husband says, not husband for you guys, husband for those watching at home. Just clarifying. your wives, or for the sisters, their husbands, does something wrong, annoys you in some way, forgive. Forget about it. And then on your way home, buy her something nice. This is the embodiment of that ayah. وَكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ وَعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Let's forgive, forget, and buy something nice on your way home. There would never be any problems if we followed this methodology. So when it comes to oneself, always forgive. When is the time not to forgive? The first stage is when someone is stubborn and insistent on and persistent in what they're doing. You know, forgive the one who will stop. The narration, we have a narration. Forgive the one that will stop, not the one who is stubborn. They're doing something constantly over and over. In the Battle of Badr, there was someone who came, is fighting against the Holy Prophet. They captured him. They brought him and they said, look, this person is to be executed. He said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I have family, I have children. Holy Prophet said, okay, look, free him. But he says, look, we're freeing you on the condition that you don't come and fight against the Muslims again. He says, no, I promise, I won't go. Come the Battle of Uhud, again, prisoner of war, they captured this guy. So again, when they bring him, no, I've got children, wife. The Holy Prophet says, no, not this time. When someone is stubborn, the mu'min doesn't make the same mistake twice. It's a hadith. Mu'min doesn't make the same mistake twice. So when someone is stubborn, there's no place for afu. Because the more you forgive them over and over and over, they're still going to continue to do that. The second place, where there is no place of, actually there's one other story that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam had a companion called Mu'alla. Now Mu'alla was arrested, he was one of the Shias, he was arrested by the governor at the time, Dawood ibn Ali. Now they take Mu'alla and they announce that we're going to execute Mu'alla. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he sends a message to Dawood ibn Ali. He says, listen, Dawood ibn Ali, let Mu'alla go. I, Imam al-Sadiq, I'm telling you, let him go, he has no crime. He doesn't listen. He says, who is he? He doesn't listen. Imam al-Sadiq saying, look, it's not going to end well for you. Don't kill Mu'alla. Let him go. He hasn't committed a crime. Dawood ibn Ali says, I don't know what he's talking about. He kills Mu'alla. They bring the news back to Imam al-Sadiq. He says that Dawood ibn Ali was making fun of you and said, who does he think he is? What? He has no maqam or whatever like this. And he's killed Mu'alla. They say we saw Imam al-Sadiq go into sajda. And we don't know what the Imam said. But all we heard, the Imam at the end was saying, Al-Ajal, Al-Ajal, Al-Ajal. Says, as the Imam raised his head from sajda, there were crying that was heard in the street. They said that we went out to look, and they said that Dawood ibn Ali, all of a sudden, he began to suffocate. His face turned a different color and he died. So says, when someone is stubborn in the face of haqq, there's no place for forgiveness. The second place is that there is no forgiveness when someone causes an issue for the deen. There's no place for forgiveness. If they're insistent on causing and attacking the deen, there is no forgiveness there. An individual you don't have to forgive and forget and move on, no. But rather, at that point, you take a stand. You define the lines. Someone is attacking the deen. Someone is attacking our aqa'id. At that point, you must raise your voice. There is no forgive and forget when the deen is involved. It doesn't matter how close the person is to you. Najashi is the poet of Amirul Mu'mineen. He would always be reciting poetry in the madh of Amirul Mu'mineen. Everywhere he went, he would recite the poetry of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. One day Najashi is walking through the streets of Kufa in Shahr Ramadan. He sees an old friend. Says, Najashi, how's it going? He says, oh, I'm on the way to the masjid. He says, oh, there's ages till azan yet. Come with me, let's go. So he takes him home, they sit down, oh, old friends, this and that. His friend brings out food, feeds him food in Ramadan, breaks his fast, makes him eat. Then he brings out alcohol and he starts drinking with Najashi. Najashi, falling into the old habit, starts drinking with him. Eventually he's walking around the streets of Kufa drunk. They grab him and they bring him to Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen orders that he be given 100 whips, 100 lashes. His people come to him, his tribesmen come to Amirul Mu'mineen that night. Say, Ya Ali, don't fulfill the had on him. Don't do the punishment on him. Ya Ali, he just did one thing wrong. You know, don't do it. Amirul Mu'mineen says, no, I can't bend the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can't bend the rules of God. They've been placed, no matter how close he is to me. Says, Ya Ali, if you do that, he's going to leave you and join Muawiyah. Imam Ali says, I don't care. He administers the had. Because that is what haqq is. That is what justice dictates. He administers the punishment. Najashi goes and he joins Muawiyah. When Muawiyah says to him, look, where are you coming? He says, I am fleeing from the justice of Ali ibn Abi Talib in order to seek sanctuary in your dhulm. So when it comes to the deen and someone attacking the deen, there's no forgiveness. The third and final place is that when a person is being humiliated. When you're being humiliated, there is no place for forgiveness there. So one day the Holy Prophet is walking and there was an individual, Hakam ibn al-As, he's the father of Marwan ibn Hakam. La'anatullah alayhi. Says that Hakam ibn al-As, what he would do is come behind the Holy Prophet and start lifting his abba and throwing it over the head of the Holy Prophet. First time, Holy Prophet carried on. He comes again and he throws it again over the Holy Prophet. Again, the Holy Prophet pulls it down, lets it go. Third time he comes, he throws it over and he starts making funny faces and walking all funny in front of the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet looks at him and says, you shall remain like this forever. And from that point onwards, Hakam ibn al-As, he couldn't walk properly. He would always wobble and he would always shake when he was walking. Humiliation. When an individual is being humiliated, there is no place. Because the izzah of the mu'min is greater than the izzah of the Kaaba. You have no right to allow yourself to be humiliated. Hayhat min dhillah. There is no humiliation. What does Sayyid al-Shuhada say? Inna da'i ibn da'i qad raqada minna bayna ithnatain bayna sillati wa dhilla wa hayhata minna dhilla. He says this illegitimate son of an illegitimate son shows us two paths. The path between death and humiliation. Wa hayhata minna dhilla. And we will never go down the path of humiliation. He says when it comes to humiliation, there is no forgiveness. One place that you should always forgive when it comes to your Zat. 3 places never to forgive is when someone is stubborn, when it comes to the deen, or when it is about humiliation. This school that is Karbala, it teaches us this. It teaches us a life with dignity. It teaches us how to live our life and how to raise our children in the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt. Tonight, we remember those two young men, those that were the sons of Zainab alayhi salam. When Imam is leaving Mecca and Abdullah ibn Ja'far comes with the Aman Nama that we spoke about, and Imam says to him, Khayrul Aman, Aman Allah. The best sanctuary is the sanctuary with Allah. They say, at that point, Abdullah said, then if you won't take this Aman Nama, then at least take my two sons. These two boys were young men, older than Al-Qasim. He says, take my two sons with you. And so Awan and Muhammad leave with their uncle and their mother. They come to the plains of Karbala, and they're by the side of Abi Abdullah. The night of Ashura comes, and every mother is preparing their children. Every mother. There's not a single mother on the night of Ashura that is saying to her children, listen, if it gets too difficult, then make sure you ride as far as you can to the nearest village. No. Every mother on the night of Ashura is saying, make sure when you go out today, nothing happens to Abi Abdullah. Make sure you go first before Abu Abdullah. And Zainab al-Kubra is the same. She sits with her sons. Awan, Muhammad, make sure tomorrow before your uncle, you are the first to go. Make sure that no one hurts your uncle. Make sure you go out and defend him. The day of Ashura dawns, and these boys are constantly back and forth from their uncle. The day of Ashura was such, from Ahlul Bayt, from Bani Hashim, that as long as the house of Aqil, the children of Aqil were alive, the children of Ja'far and Ali didn't go anywhere. When the children of Aqil all had gone out and had died, then came the turn of the children of the house of Ja'far. And in that was Awan and Muhammad. They would go to their uncle, ask for permission, and Sayyidul Shuhada would send them away. They would come back and Imam would say, listen, how can I let you go out? You are the only memory of your mother. How will I face Zainab? How will I face your mother? They say, oh uncle, it is our own mother that has sent us out. Imam says, go, I've given you permission. Muhammad goes out to fight first. He rides out, he fights bravely. From behind him, someone comes and strikes him on the head, he falls. He calls out to his uncle, oh uncle, come to my aid. There on this side, next to Abu Abdullah, Awan is standing there. This is the greatest message of the obedience to one's Imam, the level of respect to one's Imam. They say that Awan, when he heard his brother falling, Awan was unable to contain himself. He rode out straight away. He went and found the man that had killed his brother Muhammad. He strikes him and kills him, but then turns back towards Abu Abdullah. He falls at the feet of his uncle. He says, oh uncle, forgive me. I went out without your permission. Abu Abdullah lifts his nephew up. He holds him to his chest. Both of them cry profusely. Abu Abdullah says, go my son, I've given you permission. Go out and fight. Awan goes. He fights bravely, killing many of the enemies of of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Soon they surround him, they strike him, he falls to the ground. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. They say Imam al-Hussein rushes out towards their bodies. He went, he picked up the body of Muhammad, he brought it back to the tent and laid it in the tent. Then he rode out to the body of Awan and he picked up the body of Awan and he brought it and he laid it in the tent. The way that everything was set out in the tents was this, that Zainab alayha salam would be the first, because she was higher in maqam and older in age. She would be the first to come forward and mourn for those that had died. She would be the first to give condolences. But now when the bodies of Awan and Muhammad are brought, Zainab is nowhere to be seen. Abu Abdullah lays the bodies of his two nephews side by side. The riwayah says Imam Hussein lays in between the bodies of his two nephews. Hussein would turn to one side and hold the body of Awan, kissing him. Oh my son Awan. And then he would turn towards Muhammad and hold the body of Muhammad. Oh my Muhammad. Then Abu Abdullah stood up. He said, where is Zainab? Where is my sister Zainab? Zainab, you were giving condolences to everyone else. Zainab, come now to Hussein. Let Hussein give you condolences. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, for the sake of these tears, forgive our sins. Ya Allah, forgive the sins of our parents. Ya Allah, those of our parents that are alive, for the sake of that moment, that's when Zainab returned back to Medina. From Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham, from Sham to Medina, all Zainab did is cry for her brother Abu Abdullah. But the moment that Zainab entered back inside Medina and she came towards her house, the narrations say that as Zainab entered inside her house and she went to the room of Awan and Muhammad, they say that Zainab saw the musallas of her son on the ground and Zainab sat in between. She called out, "Oh Abdullah, come and give condolences to Zainab for Awan and Muhammad, for Zainab has cried for her Hussein, but she has not cried for her Awan and Muhammad." Ya Allah, for the sake of that loss that Zainab alayha salam had faced, Ya Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Those of our parents that have left this world, give them a place next to Ali Muhammad in Jannah. Ya Allah, those who are ill, give them shifa. Those who are in debt, clear their debts. Ya Allah, keep safe the azadar of Sayyid al-Shuhada around the world. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to be amongst his true muntadhireen, his true awaiters. Matamir Hussein.